Welcome to EWA's FIN-LYT podcast. EWA is a fee-only RIA based out of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. We hope all listeners of this podcast will benefit as we deep dive into complex financial topics that we will make simplified for you. And we hope that this really serves as a catalyst so that you can make the best financial planning decisions for your family and also save time. Welcome, everyone. Jamison and I today are excited to talk about how much to save outside of your 401k, specifically if you're a high income earner. So, Jamison, break it down. A lot of people think if they max out their 401k, that's enough for retirement and then kind of spend the rest. But just give us some quick math on why this isn't the case.
Yeah, I mean, if you're, we'll say what? We're just going to say high income earner, $500,000 a year or more.
Yeah.
The max you can put into 401k, if your salary deferrals, if you're under the age of 50, is $23,500. You're getting an employer match. Maybe your spouse can do the same thing. If you're really lucky and you can put more into your 401k, you can get a total of $70,000 a year into it. But even if you do that and get the full 70, yeah, it's not going to be even close to enough. So let's just do a quick interest calculator. If you took $70,000 a year.
And how did you choose 70,000? That's the full 401(c) limit with your deferral plus the match, then plus let's assume that there's a mega backdoor Roth component to that as well.
Yeah. And let's say you did that for 20 years. That's $1.4 million over 20 years. And a safe withdrawal rate would be 50 grand a year ish.
Yeah.
And so if you're used to making 500, that's not even close.
Yeah, so 500,000 or more. I mean, you're taking home about $23,000 a month in the state of Pennsylvania. Could be a little bit more, a little bit less, depending on if you live in a state without taxes, state tax. But generally speaking, we hear all the time like 60 or 80% of your net take home will be enough to retire. We don't find that's the case at all because life's money's like a temperature gauge, and it's going to go up the more you spend. So sure, when your student loan's paid off, your kids are out of the house, you may have less expenses. But unless you're saving that money, that's going to find a way to disappear pretty quickly. So that's why we recommend a concept called reverse budgeting. But lifestyle creep's a huge thing. But so hypothetically, at that $500,000 income range, most of the time when we analyze budgets, the $23,000 a month after they're maxing out the 401k, usually they're spending, somewhere between $15,000 to $16,000 a month in, fixed and variable cost. And so when we go to replicate that in retirement, let's just round it up to $200,000 a year. You're really going to need about $5 to $6 million of liquid assets to replicate that lifestyle and adjust it for inflation and use a safe withdrawal rate, whether that's the 4% or using a guardrail rate, which could, fluctuate between 3 to 6%. And so the importance, depending on where you start, because even if you started at the age of 30 and you were maxing out the elective deferral, because a lot of companies don't have the ability to do a mega backdoor Roth. So let's say you were doing the $23,500 plus getting a match of 3%. So just doing some really quick math. So 3% of 500 would be 15, but quick catch on that, you only get 3% of the IRS limit. So they cap you at, I think, 345 this year. So that's really only, about 13,000 plus what you're putting in. So all in all, it's about 3,000 a month that you'd be putting in. Let's say you start at the ripe young age of age 30. You do that for, 35 years. That's about $4.9 to $5 million. But if that's all pre-tax, safe withdrawal rate on that's 200, but after taxes, you're talking about 150. So you still have a $50,000 or $60,000 gap to address. So Jamison, give us some examples of how we do, how would you recommend someone saving outside of their 401k to make sure that they're on track for financial independence? And by the way, that was age 65. A lot of high income earners want to retire a lot sooner.
Yeah, and you can't touch your
65.
retirement account until 59 and a half. So you want some flexibility. But yeah, I mean, 401k, I guess what's order of operations here. 401k would be, first place, and then a backdoor Roth IRA if you have that ability, $7,000 a person if you're under the age of 50. It's married couple, you get $14,000 a year into it. And then from there, I mean, health savings account, would be one option. You get a tax deduction, gross tax free, takes it all. You get it pulled out tax free for health expenses. That's what's the limit this year? 85 or 83.50, I think.
Yeah.
Somewhere in that range. And then from there, 529s, if you're saving for college, that's obviously not going to be retirement geared. And then from there, everything really has to funnel into what's called non-qualified accounts, which would be your brokerage account, just like a stock account, cash in a bank account, anything that's outside of those tax favored accounts. So the reality for most high income earners is you are going to max out all of these tax favored accounts. There's limits on them, and you're making way more money than that. And so most of your money is going to accumulate in a non-qualified taxable investment account.
Yeah, no question. So, in order of importance, I would say, if you have a 401k, you're a high income earner, forego the tax savings, get the Roth elective deferral, put the $23,500 in the Roth 401k, at least put in the free money. So if you have to put in 6% to get a 3% match, do that 6% in the Roth, then max out backdoor Roths. Then if there's extra money, go back and max out your 401k to the $23,500. So now your Roth 401k and backdoor Roths are maxed out. You're getting that pre-tax match put in there. The next order of importance, I would say, is do the mega backdoor Roth. So you can go all the way up to that 70,000 or 69,000 in 2025. So figure out the difference between your elective deferral of the 23.5 plus the match and put in the difference, that mega backdoor Roth. Then outside of that, max out the health savings account. And then after that, start saving in that brokerage account. And specifically in the brokerage account, direct indexing is a good platform. If you're in a high income earner and you're just investing in mutual funds or ETFs, you're going to have to pay a capital gain tax whenever you need that money. Or direct indexing, you can tax loss harvest within the individual stocks and erase a lot of that tax liability. So that's a great strategy for money outside of your 401k. So in that example, I think it's important, to realize that most likely you're not going to be a high income earner until you're, late 20s or 30s. And so we have a shorter runway. And usually a high income earner means you're in a job that typically has higher stress. So you're typically thinking of, getting to that point where you're working because you want to, not because you have to, as quickly as possible. So we talked to a lot of people over $500,000. I mean, I would say on average, they want to be financially secure by 55. It doesn't mean they're going to retire by 55, but they want to have that optionality to walk away by 55. So then we're really talking about, making sure they're saving about 40 to 50% of their take home pay to get that on track for sure. And that does two things. One, it forces a lower lifestyle. So when they retire, they have less money to replicate. And the second thing is it allows them to save, to really inject like steroids into their plan because they're saving so much earlier, and then they have the compounding interest over growth. But I found like these dials can happen so quickly. I was, talking to a business owner. We had initially planned on his family retiring off $8,000 a month. And, at that point he was taking home like about $300,000. He was very disciplined. Well, fast forward 7 years, this advantage of owning your own tech company, he was bringing home about $3 million a year. And so we were like, well, what are you spending? He's like, well, I think, maybe we could double it. And we analyzed spending and it was close to, $30,000 a month. So almost 4 times the initial. So the initial plan was to get to, $3 million of net worth to be financially secure. That now turned into nearly $10 million of liquid net worth he needed. And he wanted to do that in an accelerated manner in his mid 40s. So, if we hadn't had that conversation, what we found is, whatever doesn't get saved typically gets spent or it gets allocated to some crazy thing, whether that's a vacation house, a private investment, or, typically if you're an entrepreneur or business, you have a new idea 1,000,000 miles a second and it's like, okay, put it here. But having a consistent plan in place, and that's often it needs to be revisited so much to be calibrated, because just $1,000 a month of spending, that could greatly affect your nest egg number by the time you want to be financially secure. So it's really important to keep that dial up and keep that temperature gauge in place between what you're spending versus saving. What are your other thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, I think that's spot on. I would say overall, I mean, Anywhere between 20 to 30% of your gross income should be the savings target. And then, like you said, if you want to accelerate financial independence, could be closer to 40 to 50. And you're not just simply not going to be able to accomplish that only through a retirement account or retirement vehicles. There's going to have to be brokerage accounts, other things that, you're going to be able to have to save into.
Yeah, no question. And a lot of people look at their net worth and like they're typically like a lifestyle, like their house. A lot of people, I think it's a big mistake, say, oh, I'm going to downsize my house. Most of the time when we've seen people sell their houses, they're usually, even if they're downsizing, they're taking the proceeds and it's pretty much going to the new house, furnituring, upgrades, whatever. I wouldn't count on a downsize of your house by the time you retire as a part of your plan, if that makes sense. How often have you seen someone downsize their house and actually invest some of that money? I can think of like one example in the past 10 years.
None that I can think of that actually saved the money. It's usually just goes into the next house. And even a downsize might be like you get into your 60s, 70s, and you want like where you don't have to go up steps. Like it's a 1-floor house or house in a basement or 1-floor basement. And it's probably just as expensive or more because now you want like luxury things in the house and you want it to be nice. And so sure, it may be a downsize, but the net cost is probably the same price as the house you're in now.
I think humans, we can be very competitive. You have to have a plan in place to make sure that you're saving with a purpose, not just for the sake of accumulating to accumulate. But what do you think a good number is to have saved? Let's just say by the time you're in your 30s to be in like the top 5% of net worths in America. What do you think you need between like 30 to 39?
5%?
Yeah.
Would you say 30 to 30?
Just say in your 30s, so 30 to 39.
5% is a big variance, so I'm going to say like a couple $100,000.
The top 5% between 30 to 39 would be 1.1 million.
Oh.
40 to 49, 2.5 million. 50 to 59, 5 million, and then 60 to 69, about
I thought those numbers would be
7 million.
Like 1 or 2%. But interesting.
Yeah. So and even like looking at, I think it's important to have those metrics in mind. So there's accountability because as humans, we can always say, oh, my stocks are going to vest or my RSUs are going to vest or my business is going to sell or, and maybe that is the case. But I also think that you need to have the discipline to create that liquidity, irregardless of what happens with those events that you have in the back of your mind, kind of as the backup plan. Because a lot of times those backup plans stay as backup plans and they don't actually happen.
I had a business owner just tell me this a week or two ago. He said, I don't care about what the piece of paper says my balance sheet is. He said, all I care about with people's net worth is if you need to get cash tomorrow, what is that number?
I love that.
Yeah. He said too many people talk about all this fake stuff on the balance sheet. Business is going to sell or this investment's going to hit. It's like, no, what do you have liquid that you could put on the table tomorrow if you needed it? Like it's true.
Yeah, no question. Well, on top of, so I would say, generally speaking, for someone in their, let's just say someone wants to spend like $15,000 a month right now and they're retiring. Generally speaking, with Social Security, I would target, you would want a liquid net worth between 2.5 to 3.5 million. But if you're in your 30s right now and thinking, what do I need to kind of replicate a good lifestyle? If you're, $500,000 income earner around that, you're going to need almost double that. I mean, you're going to need between $5 to $7 million because of inflation and other factors that are going to come into play. So when we used to, hear when we were growing up, I don't know if you ever heard like, oh, you need $1 million and you're set for retirement. Now we're 6 or 7 times that.
Oh yeah, $1 million.
It's a lot of money, but if you're high net worth, high income earner,
doesn't go as far as it used to. How about that? That's a good way to put it.
Absolutely. Yeah, you're going to have to adjust those old sayings and calibrate appropriately. Yeah. So, okay. Well, other things. So I think the important part is this can change so quickly based upon your income going up. And if you set a stagnant plan of I'm saving this and your income goes up and you spend the difference, you could find yourself halfway on track if you wake up at 65. So you got to constantly update and review your plan. And then also from a tax perspective, you have to diversify and don't just put all your money in a environment that's going to save you taxes. Now you have to think about the end game in mind. And that's why we're huge believers in Roth. Most people that are high income earners value high autonomy, and to have a high autonomy, it means every aspect of your life. You don't want to have things dictated on you like a pre-tax 401k where the government's telling you to take it out every year. You want to have the ability to decide, I'm going to take this because I want it, when I want it, with no tax consequences, et cetera. And then you do that through Roth. You do that through direct indexing. You do that through, the HSA, et cetera. So any closing thoughts on the importance of saving outside of your 401k, Jamison?
No, just save outside your 401k.
If you were
don't rely on just your 401k.
So I'm going to ask rapid fire to see how quickly your brain works. So someone's making $300,000. They're putting in $23,500 to their 401k. What would you say? They're in their 30s. What do you think a healthy amount is to be saving in a brokerage account?
They're making how much?
$300,000.
So 50. It depends on spending. $2,000-$3,000 a month.
Okay, let's adjust that to $500,000. They're maxing out there's the $23,500. They don't have the mega back to Roth.
There's variables here. Kids, a lot of student loans.
Of course, yeah, of course.
But
what's a minimum healthy number?
Probably $5 a month.
$5 a month. Okay. Yeah, I'd say most of our clients, would be saving like $5 to $20 a month in a brokerage account because they've maxed out all those other avenues, and that's the excess. And I think the most important part of saving in a brokerage account also is not just the fact that you have liquid available money, no penalties before you're 59.5. It controls the temperature gauge. Because if you don't save that $5,000 a month, it's a huge difference in someone that's saving that $5,000 a month that allows you to be so flexible. And as you go in your 40s, maybe you do want to buy a second house. You can shut that off and send that payment somewhere else. So saving that brokerage account, it not just gives you extra financial stability in the long run, it gives you extra financial flexibility in the short run, which we've seen come to use all the time in the financial plans that we've helped clients through. Thanks for tuning in to our podcast. Hopefully you found this helpful. Really hope this is as beneficial and impactful to as many people across the nation as possible. So hit the follow button. Make sure to rate the podcast, and please share with any friends or family members that would also find this beneficial. Thank you very much.